as I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, surprise, surprise, Anastasia Palaszczuk, she tries to say before the last state election, no pay rises for 4 years, then gets a $30,000 one straight after. Does this surprise anyone? Certainly not James McGrath, the LNP Senator from Queensland, and the wonderful Jacinta Price from the Centre of Independent Studies, and the Deputy Mayor of Alice Springs. Senator, I'll start with you. Oh, of course, it's an independent tribunal. So you try to say to the mushrooms before the election, oh, there'll be no pay rises for 4 years. I'm one of you. I'm toughing it out. Then she's up 30 grand within a year.
Oh, but this is Palaszczuk who says that before the last election will now take the pay rise. But this is Palaszczuk who says everyone should have a vaccine but hasn't had the vaccine herself.
Great point.
And this is Palaszczuk who talks about cracking down on crime. We've got, Townsville, which is just the crime capital of Australia, if not the world. This is a Premier who says a lot but does nothing. So no one should be surprised by this. And guess who loses? Queensland and the taxpayers.
It's not like we didn't try to warn you, as I say, Queensland. So just keep listening, all right? We'll just keep listening. We'll keep powering on. Now, Jacinta, one of the things that has become clear, and we don't talk about this enough in Australia, right, is that there are instantly people, and the media is talking to these people because they're trying to create an overall political wedge about who's paying for the shutdown in Victoria. But I want to take this from a slightly different angle, right? Which is that there are people who are being used in these stories to say even 2, 3, 4 days of no work and they can't pay the rent. There is a huge number of Australians who, frankly, they go not just paycheck to paycheck, they're going week to week. And these stories are not uncommon. There's lots of different solutions to this, but it's a lovely little reminder here that it's not always government's job here. It's about the type of work that you're willing to do, the type of job that is available, the fact of whether you're willing to move to go to a place or not. But what do you think when you see those stories, apart from the who should pay the bill for the lockdown, when somebody just 4 days into a lockdown is saying, I've got no money to pay my rent?
Yeah, look, I mean, it's difficult, isn't it? These are difficult situations, and certainly we've seen an influx of Victorians coming to the Northern Territory. In the Northern Territory, we have lots and lots of jobs available, it appears, and houses available too that are going like hotcakes. Soon won't be available, but look, it is difficult, and I think the responsibility lays on the shoulders of Daniel Andrews and his government, because continually we're seeing failure after failure after failure in terms of their handling of COVID-19 and the lockdowns that continuously occurring. I mean, I guess I'm concerned about the mental health, the mental state of the entire state at the same time, and what this means in the long term. I mean, we might have a situation here where people will get to a point that their mental state doesn't allow for them to be able to get back into work. And what are the Andrews government going to do then? I mean, at what point do they pull up and actually say, we have not been able to handle this correctly, we continue to fail, we are out of our depth, and we need, do they need the feds to step in? I mean, clearly, not far away from them, Gladys Berejiklian seems to have got the situation under control. People aren't suffering in her state in terms of employment or not being able to pay bills. She's ensuring that, any cases that do come into the state are dealt with and effectively. So that's what it comes down to, effectively being able to deal with this situation, which clearly the Andrews government continue to fail with.
Remember, Northern Beaches end of last year, twice as bad as what's happening in Victoria right now. The solution there was not even to lock down all of the city of Sydney. It was one part. It's exactly what should be happening here. Regional Victoria needs to be freed from this nonsense now. The Qantas boss has said that they may be giving away free flights to people who are vaccinated. We know in the United States they've got lotteries and even people suggesting you can get free fast food for vaccines. My personal view is to guarantee everyone gets vaccinated in the country, a year's worth of free sausage sizzles at Bunnings, taxpayer funded, perhaps, who knows. But that would motivate Australians. But James, do you think people are actually going to get the jab for any other reason than getting the jab to stop coronavirus? I don't know if people can be bought for this stuff, but what do you think?
people can't be bought for this, and if Qantas are going to give away free flights, I'd like them to give them away to regional Queenslanders who actually pay through the nose to get flights from Longreach to Brisbane and so forth. So I'll tell Mr Joyce, focus on good airfares for regional Queenslanders. No, people are going to get the jab because they don't want to have another situation like what's happening in Victoria at the moment. And yes, if they get like a six-pack or a free flight, well, that's a bonus for them. But I think we just all want to get through this nightmare, and the quickest way to get through this nightmare is for everybody to have the vaccination so we can try and get back to a normal life as quickly as possible.
Yeah, look, absolutely. Now, by the way, how's the vaccine rollout going in the Northern Territory? Are they leaning on local council to help doing things there too, Jacinta, or is it, dog's breakfast like everything that's run by the Territory?
Oh, look, I think Territorians are just, deciding casually, I'll go ahead and get the vaccine. I know my father's gone ahead and signed himself up to go get the vaccine. There are those that are, I know a lot of young people, however, are reluctant to go in and get the AstraZeneca, obviously, so they're sort of hanging out till the Pfizer's available. In terms of flying, I agree with what James has said. I think, Ms Joyce needs to look at the fact that we've got the highest, we've got to pay absolutely ridiculous amounts of money to fly around the country from places like Alice Springs and Darwin, and we would love to be able to have free airfares or have our airfares reduced. I think if the airfares were reduced, we'd probably see more people from the Northern Territory wanting to fly around the place. I mean, I'll be at some stage getting the vaccine because I want to go and see my in-laws over in Scotland who I haven't been able to see for a number of years, and so does my husband. He wants to see his parents. So, I think Australians will have their reasons for going ahead and wanting to get the vaccine.
Now, we all know that there are, and I'm always very partial to this because I remember as a little tacker, my mum, spending many a countless night trying to fill out all the sorts of applications to get just a small amount of government funding to keep her non-government organisation around when it came to mental health and mental health awareness and advocacy. And that process was really difficult, right? So I'm always really aware when governments spend money that they don't need to, don't have to. It's why it really matters, because there'll be somebody who's been told no by the Queensland government for whatever reason recently. But because a state of origin game was up for grabs, they found $8 million down the back of the couch. They spent $8 million to get it, and it's going to go to Townsville. Awesome, great, glad it's going to be played in Townsville. But the idea, Jacinta, that there is a community group somewhere that asked for 10 grand but got knocked back, or $1 million that could be spent somewhere else instead, $8 million for a footy game.
I know. Look, I think, as James mentioned, Townsville's got huge issues with regard to youth crime and the crime issue that's going on there. Why wouldn't you have invested that sort of money into the community to deal with those issues prior to a game going there? And it's incredible the way in which Anastasia bends over backwards when she sees an opportunity that she finds, can satisfy her and her government, but not when it comes to actually, looking after the people of Queensland when they're in need either. And you know what? I'm a New South Wales supporter. This is where I draw the line, and I think it's utterly unfair that the New South Wales have to play 2 games in Queensland to begin with. So it's
boo.
Well, it feels like we've been playing State of Origin for like 18 months now, with border closures and all the rest of it. But James, again, right, if you had $8 million, it's great that you got the second game, love Townsville, but if there's $8 million to spend for a lasting legacy in Townsville, you could probably come up with something other than 80 minutes of Origin footy, couldn't you?
You'd spend it on getting some more coppers on the beat. You'd spend it on making sure that these juveniles who are running out of control are locked away properly. You'd do it on all sorts of things. I mean, I'm really happy that the game's coming to Townsville. I think it's brilliant. But this shows that the state Labor government in Queensland are all about bread and circuses. It's all about what they think will appeal to the mob without looking at the serious public policy issues that are impacting Queensland at the moment. $8 million could make so much of a difference to so many communities. or could make a big difference to a small community. Gundawindi, Lawrence Springbog's the mayor out there. He wants a rail freight hub. He'd love the money to help build that. That would have a lasting impact on a small town like Gundawindi. But in Townsville, $8 million would do so much to help fight crime.
Bread and circuses, as you say, they're so good at it, and they were richly rewarded with another 4 years to be able to continue spending for bread and circuses and things to make themselves look better. Thank you, Jacinta. Thank you, Senator. We'll talk to you again soon.